Why is the knee and the back and the shoulder the biggest problems? Because you got a lack of ankle mobility or hip mobility or T-spine mobility.
Well, this was a thing that Mike Boyle and I tried to formulate, and it became known on the internet as the joint-by-joint approach. And it sort of came from me exploring Vladimir Janda. So I'm going to take a tangent. I'll be right back. I know that annoys you. But Vladimir Janda had this concept of a lower and upper crossed syndrome, the way you would disorganize your neck, head, shoulders, and torso, or your pelvis, hips, and low back to a sedentary or overtrained situation. The funny thing is, the default of bad movement screens is usually too much or not enough activity. We don't see great movement screens, after we've been beaten up on you in athletics in the military, and we don't see great movement screens on people who sit too much. Okay.
Yeah, some of the best movement screens are people who are just, they're pretty active. They walk every day. They're just kind of, they feel pretty good about themselves. Those are the best movement screeners. The NFL Combine guys are not.
Yeah, no. I think Michael Easter exposed through a conversation with the Go Ruck crowd, what kind of body do I get when I ruck? Pretty much super medium. Super medium's a good movement screen that I can do anything.
I'll take that all day.
Yeah. Well, super medium can adapt in any direction. A fixed, over-specialized bodybuilder going to have a hard time doing a ballistic sport. They've been training to pose, not bounce and move. So you don't see bodybuilders in parkour. You don't see parkour guys posing too much. But
all right, let me take you back to your tangent. Vladimir Janda and the upper and lower cross syndrome.
He noticed these tendencies. And I'll give you the example in the lower body. Your hip flexors become your abs, right? And your low back becomes your glutes. You start extending your low back instead of finishing your hip extension. And you start planking with your hip flexor instead of your frickin' core. And he noticed this when we get disorganized. Once again, sit too much or get myopic in our training or overtrain. Now, Vladimir Janda also looked at the body in layers or regions. And that really got me thinking. And so one of those thoughts happened to spill out on a bar when me and Mike Boyle are about 3 beers into a conversation. And he said, just spell it out. How do you see the body? And I said, well, if I come at it at layers, and the way I phrased it that day was, if I could give your foot a gift, it would be stability, because it's inherently structured to be mobile. Your foot looks like your hand flattened down. So there's a lot of mobility built in there, a lot of sensation built in there. But if you don't have control of that, you can't feel what that adaptable arch is getting ready to tell you. Likewise, the ankle is inherently stable, but must maintain mobility within its safe ranges. But the ankle is a much more stable structure. We get up to the knee, it's only a hinge joint, but it pivots, so it's a 3D joint. Your knee is built to be mobile, but man, when it's not stable, there are problems. You dislocate a patella, you hyperextend your knee, you blow a meniscus, you'll shred a ligament. Let's get up to the hip. That's a true ball and socket joint. Your shoulder ain't. Your shoulder's a ball and saucer. It's a little bit different. But your hip is an inherently integrally structured joint. It must maintain its mobility to function. Now we flip up through the pelvic floor and back. That right there should be stable through muscular alignment, but it's designed to be mobile so you are adaptable. You can function getting up off the floor. A back getting up off the floor doesn't look like a deadlifting back, right? A quadruped animal doesn't use lordosis.
Yeah, let me pause right there, Greg, because I think that's a big misconception.
Okay.
Is that I think somewhere along the line that people assume the back shouldn't move. And the back was built to move. Now, there's certain situations where if you're lifting heavy or you're under load, you got to create a stiff back in order for you to not injure the back. But tell me how you're going to get in and out of the car or up and down off the floor without your back moving. It ain't going to happen.
Well, and we learned that from the developmental progression, because a baby simply gains the pattern for gait through going through rolling, crawling, kneeling, striding, stepping, squatting. And so a baby with a mobile spine learns how to organize it for gait. But at any time, if that baby can't walk, it didn't lose the ability to crawl, half kneel, roll. or anything like that. Now, when we get fixed into an upright posture and can't explore those lower postures, the mobile spine, right? Then we're going to lose something, but we're going to lose it slow, almost in an imperceptible way, just like going deaf and learning to read lips. But there's a lot of people who are walking around that don't have good balance. The fact that they're walking is a great compensation, but if we test their balance, we're blown away. The two things we say is, if we test your balance and you have bad ankles, you're a good compensator. If we test your balance and you have good ankles, it's somewhere else. We don't have to bottleneck at the ankles. So we know we can go right to core stability or some other factor. But stiff ankles make the foot pronate and the knee rotate in unnatural positions. So we see stiff ankles associated with plantar fasciitis and foot problems like bunions. And we also see stiff ankles in people who seem to injure their knees frequently. And so the joint by joint conversation that Mike and I were having is, let's not talk about a joint in isolation. Let's talk about joints in relationship.